What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about the worst drills that wide receivers still do and some better alternatives. I feel like the wide receiver position consistently is evolving, and a lot of older school coaches don't change their ways, so wide receivers consistently rip out drills that are bad for them. So these are going to be some great drills that you guys should do and some drills that you should avoid. Now, the first drill, guys, that I feel wide receivers need to avoid is any type of like three-cone beat the drum drill. So I think a lot of times at the top of the route, older school receiver coaches teach this whole like beat the drum method, where you go up into your break, like let's say I'm running like a 12 back to 10 yard curl. Let's say this cone is where I have to break. A lot of times guys will teach you want to chop your feet and chop your hands to get around the cone. So a lot of times wide receiver coaches will have their guys do drills where they're kind of repping that out. And this is an example of one that I see pop up a lot. And I feel like it's good for maybe beginner type wide receivers to work on their footwork, but I feel like it is not the best drill if you were trying to work on proper top of the route mechanics. So like guys will line up here, they'll have three cones set up maybe about like 2 yards apart, 3 yards apart each. Now again, I'm not the biggest fan of wide receivers doing drills when the cones are 2 to 3 yards apart, because how do you actually practice running full speed into a route? Like most routes for wide receivers are 5 yards or more, right? So like I would like any type of change of direction that I do to be an open space. The receiver position is not played with a bunch of tight cones and doing some type of obstacle course drill. Now again, maybe it works on foot speed, maybe it works on staying on the ball of your foot, and I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I just feel like wide receivers are never going to use this type of stuff in an actual game scenario. So they'll have guys run up, they break down around the cone, they break down around the cone again, and then they go all the way up to the top of this cone and they break down one more time and then come back and maybe catch the ball. Now again, I feel like it's just promoting a lot of bad habits for wide receivers, because if you're running 2 yards, you're not necessarily running like in full stride. Like if I'm running, let's say a 12 back to 10 yard curl, what I'm trying to do as a receiver is I'm trying to push vertical to 12 yards. I'm trying to get that DB to backpedal, turn and open up his hips. So when I'm doing that, I gotta make sure I'm running with long strides, I'm running with good speed, and I have a slight forward lean with my body language. If I'm doing a drill where the cone's 2 yards away, like how am I running in full stride? I gotta start my break as soon as I start the drill. So I feel like it's not the most beneficial drill for wide receivers to do. Now again, we're not necessarily promoting good hip drop mechanics. There are two ways wide receivers will slow down at the top of the route. At the top of the break, you could either chop your feet and then gradually drop your hips, or you could take less steps with your feet and drop your hips first and then focus on turning your feet, turning your hips to get you out of the break. So it's one of two ways that you could change direction and slow down. I feel like this drill just promotes a lot of bad habits, and I feel there are better alternatives to help wide receivers with a violent drop of their hips to make their breaks faster, but also get them to learn how to cut and break while running in full stride and running in open space, which is how the position is played. So we're going to show you a great alternative to drills like this for receivers. Now guys, before we get into an alternative drill, we are going to be traveling out to 6 more cities across the entire US for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps this offseason, fellas. So guys, if you want some information on how you can sign up, go to that very first link in the description below. That is where you can get all the info on the cities that we are going to. Next up on our camp tour, we're going to be coming out to Birmingham, Alabama. Then after that, we'll be heading out to Houston, Texas. Both of those camps, though, you guys, are completely sold out. But after that, we will be coming out to Boston, Massachusetts. We have availability there. They'll be coming out to Columbus, Ohio. That camp is completely sold out. And then after that, we'll be coming out to Boise, Idaho, and Los Angeles, California, where we do have available spots. So guys, if you'd like to sign up to train with us in either of those cities listed, Boston, Boise, or Los Angeles, that's where we have availability, go to that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. The reason why our camps all sell out is simply because we limit spots so we can work with each athlete individually. Athletes do not develop, athletes do not get better when they're in an environment where there's a million people there and it's just reps, 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 reps. We believe in actually coaching up athletes, giving them things that they could take home and actually improve on their own time. So giving you valuable skills that you are learning. That's our whole MO. So guys, if that sounds like a camp you're interested in, we'd absolutely love to have you out. So go to that very first link in the description below. It's where you could sign up. We hope we can see you there. So guys, this alternative drill is going to be more so working on a hip drop in a realistic type setting. So you almost want to think of this as like a stutter curl route, if you will, but we're going to be taking almost like a baseball shuffle into this drill to generate some momentum to work on you guys dropping your hips while you're actually running with full strides and in full speed. So you need pretty much 3 sets of cones. Treat this as your top cone. The rest of these cones replicate something I call an energy lane. So whenever you drop your hips, you're trying to be as explosive as possible, and that explosion should shoot you into acceleration out of the break so you can widen yourself from a DB. I always think of it like it is a race back to the ball anytime that you are running a route. And these first 2 cones. The white cone is the start cone. Middle cone is where you guys are gonna work on a violent drop of your hips to build muscle memory, so the same type of hip drop actually happens at the top of the break when we need it to get out of the route. So the reason why we do a baseball shuffle is so it doesn't turn into the last drill that we were doing, where I was having you guys beat the drum and you're running with super choppy steps. You're actually gonna start 2 yards behind this white cone. And we're gonna show you a full speed example of this in a second. You're gonna shuffle into it, take off on an actual run to generate some momentum. At this cone, you're gonna have a violent drop of your hips, but it's gonna be just a quick drop. You're gonna try to stop yourself by sitting your hips down. I say play musical chairs. Music stops, you sit in the chair. Immediately, and this is why you gotta make sure you stay on the ball of your foot. You don't wanna be on your heels when you do this, because it's gonna be harder to re-accelerate to the next cone. It's a drop, re-accelerate up, and I want the same type of hip drop at the top of this cone, but now I wanna run my hands. I don't wanna beat the drum. I wanna keep my hands natural, like I'm just running a normal, I'm like running, just normally running. I drop my hips, and I'm running, turning my hips, flipping out, and coming out of this energy lane, and you could have a quarterback give you a ball at this spot. But this is a realistic way to work on that hip drop and a more realistic type stride and speed setting. So we're gonna show you how this should look, full speed. Now the next drill, fellas, that I don't like that wide receivers do, or wide receiver coaches have their receivers do, is anytime you're working on like a stick at the top of the route. So like you would use a stick type cut on routes like a post or a corner route, maybe an out route or an in route, like a slant if you will. But like let's say I'm doing a 3-step slant, 1, 2, 3, that like hard cut is that like stick. Now remember, as a wide receiver, we're always playing the game in a full stride, like 95% speed. I always say full speed, but I don't actually mean like all out like you're running a 40-yard dash. It's like a controlled speed, but at the same time your stride length is longer. It's like you're running like track, if you will. It's not short choppy steps, because if I'm like a DB, let's say for example, and I'm sitting off at like 10 yards just off coverage, and we had to run like an 8-yard post or a 10-yard post, and I go up and let's say I'm running coming off the ball, but right before I get to 8 yards I start to take these like kind of choppy steps and then I cut. As soon as a DB feels you start chopping your feet, he gets out of his pedal and he expects a break, and when he's expecting a break, it's a lot easier for him to drive on the ball and make a play. So I feel like receiver coaches rep out drills and receivers rep out drills that promote that bad habit. So this is an example of one, right? So we have all these cones set up in kind of this zigzag pattern, and guys will have coaches go like quick feet, quick feet, quick feet, quick feet, and they say they're working on that stick. But at the same time, I'd rather have you guys work on that stick and do a more simple drill, but you're actually running in full stride, actually running in that controlled full speed, so you could get used to changing direction and open space, not tight and short choppy spaces. So we're going to show you an alternative of any type of drill where you have to do quick feet to work on your stick route or your stick cut, and so it can actually translate to routes that you run. Now fellas, this drill I call our cone zigzag drill. So this is a drill that I'll do with all of my wide receivers to work on 45-degree angle cuts where they have to use that like stick, hard, like heavy indicator type cut at the top of the route. So post, corners, a post corner, a slant, anytime you got to put one foot in the ground and cut. Now notice how it's the same type of pattern as the last drill. We have cones at a 45-degree angle, but they are very far apart. Sometimes with receivers, I don't even set up cones for this because I'd rather have them not think about getting to a cone and reaching, or maybe shortening their steps. I'll just tell them run at this specific angle, and I'll put the cones like 10 yards apart. Treat the cones as an angle that your hips want to face on, rather than like a spot that you have to cut to or a spot that you have to cut in between. But the goal of this drill, with the further cones and less cones, there's only 4 cones on this drill, is to keep things simple, but to work on your cuts while you're actually running in full stride. Now, a lot of receivers, when they do this, they're not like successful at this drill the first couple of times, maybe because they lack leg strength, maybe because they lack ankle stability, because those are 2 things that are really important in being able to cut on a dime. If you're a receiver who has like really skinny legs and you struggle, like you're very flat-footed, doing these types of drills are tough. Doing the short choppy steps is not going to get you benefit. What will get you benefit is getting in the gym and strengthening your legs, doing a lot of single leg exercises to build ankle stability, so that translates to on-field play. We can make a whole separate video on gym exercises that wide receivers shouldn't do and gym exercises that receivers should do. And if you'd like me to do that, post in the comments and I could absolutely post something like that within the next week. But you guys have to understand, your training needs to replicate what you actually do as a receiver. We're never doing drills to just do drills. We're doing drills that translate to routes. And we run actual actual routes. I had a receiver from like a college DM me the other day, and he was talking about some drills that I posted, and he's like, well, yeah, but you should just train routes. Like, you don't do drills in a game. If your drills are realistic, they translate to the actual routes. If you're like a college level receiver, yeah, maybe you don't need to do a ton of drill work, but most guys don't have it all figured out yet. So the drills need to translate to the routes. So this is a good example of this drill. All you need is 1, 2, 3 cones set up about 5 yards apart, and we are counting steps on this drill. In between the cones, we're taking 3 steps. If you can't get to the cone in 3 steps, do not worry about it. Just think about 3 steps. This drill is 9 steps total. So you're starting out here with your left foot up. We come off the ball. It's 1, 2, hard cut. On the 3rd step, that is your stick cut. So it's bam, you push off. That's your first step here. 2, 3, hard cut again. 1, 2, 3, hard cut again. And you could have a quarterback give you a ball, or you could just accelerate out and run. So we're going to show you how this drill should look full speed. Great drill for wide receivers to work on cutting in full stride and using that stick cut in a more game realistic situation. So now, fellas, I think I only really need to talk about this one. I don't necessarily need to show you. I'm going to show you an alternative to this, of course, but I would say ladder drills. So doing ladder drills as a wide receiver, like, you know, like your basic, like 2 in, 2 out, running 2 in, stepping 2 out, all those like quick feet type ladder drills may not be the best thing for wide receivers to do, just simply because I feel like it doesn't translate to our actual game. Now, I want to make myself very clear. With my receivers, who are probably like ages 9 to 11, I spend actually a decent amount of time doing ladder drills, because I feel like a lot of younger wide receivers are not coordinated. If you are not a coordinated wide receiver, you're very clumsy, you don't have the cleanest footwork, then ladder drills are obviously good for you to do. I know me personally as a player, I got a ton of benefit out of doing ladder drills, but eventually you got to move on. Eventually you have to progress to more position specific training, not just straight up footwork training, because you could get very good on a ladder, but if you can't cut, again, in open space or when you're performing actual wide receiver movements, you're not going to be able to play the position effectively. Now, again, like I said, ladder drills are not awful to do, but when my receivers get to probably like age 12, 13, 14, I take them off the ladder. If they need ladder work at that specific age, that's not necessarily what I'm going to focus on with them. I would probably tell them to do ladders on their own time, because in our specific groups at that specific age, we need to focus on other skills that are going to better prepare you for high school level, right? For high school level, and especially if you're in high school to prepare yourself for college level, I don't think you need to be spending time doing that. A lot of receiver coaches really hate on ladder drills and say no receivers should do it. I disagree with that. I think the younger guys can get some benefit, but I think that you older guys probably shouldn't be spending a ton of time on the ladder. If you add it into your warm-up, I think that's totally cool. I think that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, I would rather have you do position-specific or wide receiver-specific ladder drills, and we're going to show you some examples of that right now. So with my older wide receivers, what we'll do to start out every single workout is get some type of setup like this where we have 5 cones and we'll kind of work through the ladder, if you will. Like, you could do this with an actual like speed agility ladder, like maybe one of those like smaller green ones, or even one of those longer yellow ones. You could do the exact same stuff, but I'm going to give you 3 position specific ladder drills and then show you a full speed example of each one of those. So maybe you could start adding on to your ladder routine and make it a little bit more realistic to what you have to do as a receiver. So the first one's just going to be a jab. So a typical wide receiver, or a typical ladder drill, I should say, is you go down the ladder and you just tap your foot, tap your foot, tap your foot. But when am I ever cutting as a wide receiver on just my tippy toes? Now again, don't get me wrong, it's good for younger guys to work on staying on the ball of their foot. So many receivers, and just so many athletes in general, are super flat-footed and they have really weak ankles and weak feet, and they're not able to actually be on the ball of their foot, which limits their speed. So it can be good for that. But if you're trying to work on your wide receiver skills, when you throw a cut, when you throw a jab off the line, your whole foot's in the ground and you were stepping hard and you were trying to sell with your hip. So I'll have my guys go hands, feet, jab, and their hip goes with the cut, their whole foot gets down, and I'm trying to hear their foot. So we'll show you how that looks full speed in a second. Now, another one you could do to build off of that is work a crossover. So this could be like, you know, top of the route. Let's use that post example that we were talking about earlier. Instead of just cutting in full stride off of 1 foot, maybe I want to throw a move. Maybe I want to be in full stride and do a 1-2 to try to get that DB to bite the opposite way. So all you would do is go down the ladder the same way, 1-2. 1, 2, and take it nice and slow. We're focused on being explosive with my feet, not rushing through the ladder like you might do on normal ladder drills. Now, last one is going to be something called an explosive icky shuffle. So this helps suppress releases and obviously that same stick type cut. So what's a regular icky shuffle? 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Now it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, working on that hard stick cut. So I go here, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So it's the same rhythm as the icky shuffle, but it's more wide receiver specific. So we're going to show you how all three of those drills should look full speed so you guys can get a better sense of what a ladder routine should look like.